I think a perfect way to start this would be to ask our panel to introduce themselves, a bit about your sort of background, who you are, obviously, and what you did before the MBA and what you do now. That would be really helpful. So if I start with Beatriz, if you want to go first, and then maybe we go on to Ovie and go from there. Okay.
Great. So my name is Beatriz. I'm class 23, like my colleagues here. I'm from Portugal, but I've been living in the UK for quite some time now. Before the MBA, I was working in financial operations for Ford Credit. I was overseeing the financial operations for Portugal and Spain. And now I work for Johnson & Johnson, where I'm creating and implementing a supplier and contract management program for.
Fantastic, thank you. Ovie, over to you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Ovie, but just everyone calls me Ovie, and that's fine. I'm from Nigeria, and prior to the MBA, prior to the MBA, I was a petroleum engineer in an oil and gas firm in Nigeria, working on drilling wells and investment decision analysis. So that's looking at what kind of assets do we begin to buy and things like that. And then coming to the MBA, which was a wonderful experience. And now I'm working at American Express as a strategy and planning manager for the travel and lifestyle services. So kind of a big jump. So I'm very interested to talk about this to anyone that wants to hear.
Fantastic, thank you. Virginia, over to you.
Yeah, sure. So hello, everyone. My name is Virginia. Probably there's not a lot of people from my region here. I'm Mexican. They're all asleep right now. I used to work in PwC Mexico before doing my MBA. I was a customs and foreign trade manager, so I was in charge of doing like all the import and export strategies for many companies. Then I decided to do my MBA because it was very specialized and very niche, and I wanted to do something more general. So after my MBA, I shift careers, and currently I'm in the UK, and I work for a firm called Curzon Consulting, and I do management consulting.
Okay, fantastic. So there's a few topics I want to cover over the next 40 minutes or so. And I think maybe a good place to start is if we take you guys back before the MBA and actually before you maybe thought about applying to Manchester or going through the admission process, just to focus a little bit on selecting MBA programs. There'll be many candidates in the room today are sort of going through that process. As we know, it can be quite a daunting prospect, thinking about all the different decision-making factors that you might have gone through in the terms of where you might want to study, how you like to learn, maybe career elements that maybe influence the particular schools that you targeted, and you know, the wider landscape of the MBA market, as we know, is huge. So one factor I tend to talk about sometimes when discussing MBA to candidates is the fact if you're looking at a reputable school or a top school, a good starting point would be a triple accredited MBA. That would be one this is holding the majority of the accreditation in this industry. But in fact, that only makes up 1% of global business schools. So that just gives a bit of an indication of the scale of the MBA market. So I was hoping maybe some of you could give some insight into your journey about selecting an MBA. What were some important factors for you getting to, say, deciding on an MBA here in the UK? And then obviously that journey towards learning about Manchester and selecting Manchester as your school. So if we maybe go in reverse order, and Virginia, would you want to start first and go from there? Sorry to put you on the spot.
No. It's fine. I think, as you mentioned, the first factor was geography. In my case, I was not considering the UK at first, I may say, but it was also related to age. So when you start like researching things and like researching programs, you realize that like certain people go to certain programs at a certain age, and usually people that do MBAs in Europe, generally speaking, and in the UK are older. I took the decision to do an MBA when I was in like my late 20s that I would be joining in my 30s. And it was important for me to have people the same age and like the same level of experience for me to enjoy like really the journey. Also, when I started applying, there was this change of policy in the UK to have the graduate visa, and that was attractive for me. So like just for people who's not aware about this, because of Brexit, the UK changed their policies, and now after you graduate from a UK university, you have a 2-year graduate visa that you can use. You don't need to be sponsored by your employer to stay in the UK. That was also very attractive for me. And of course, I mean, it was the UK because there is many schools in the UK that are in the top 10 or like in the top 100 that you were mentioning. They're very good schools. They're very competitive schools. So that's how I decided first the UK. And then when it came like to Manchester, it's very hard to look at rankings because rankings have like many different dimensions and like they have many KPIs. So I picked the ones that were like very important for me. One was value for money. I did not want to be in debt after the MBA. So I was like, okay, I want to be in a school which I can like a very good education, like for a very good value for money. So that was one. And the second one, it was probably the Manchester method that maybe we're going to be talking about later on. But after not being in school for many years and going back to school, it's like, it's a very hard step, right? Because you come like from being very practical and now you're going back to be a student and like having tests and so on. So yeah, it is very hard, believe it or not. And you realize when you start like studying for the GMAT and everything, you don't have the same discipline. You lose it with the years. So it was very important for me to have like just the theoretical part, but the practical part. And like all these consulting projects that we will be talking about also like later on were very attractive for me.
Okay, fantastic. And Beatriz, anything to add to that on your experience?
Well, my experience was quite different, and I don't know if many people can actually relate to this, because it's not that I compare Manchester to other universities and thought that Manchester was better, was that I've been living, when I decided to do the MBA, I've already been living in Manchester for quite some time, and I've met people from all different universities, and there was always something very unique about the people that study in Manchester. They all have this can do, want to do sort of attitude. And then Manchester is a very multicultural city, and you can learn so much just by being surrounded yourself with people from other cultures and other backgrounds that have different views, different perspectives, different ideas. So when I decided to do the MBA, I knew that I didn't want to miss out on that. I knew that I wanted to be in a very multicultural environment with people also roughly my age, and with the attitude of want to do, want to change, want to take action. So for me, it was always, I'm either going to do this in Manchester or I'm not going to do this at all. So I knew it was a top school and it had this very important criteria for me. So it was not so much of, I looked at rankings and I compared whatever I knew this was the place that I wanted to be. So
interesting. Yeah. Okay.
Very, very interesting for Beatriz, I think. I would say for me, it was kind of, I'm going to try to break it down into this. So for me, I looked at number one, finance, very key. Number two, the ranking of the school. Number three, where would I actually enjoy being? And I would start off by saying, I didn't want to come to the UK at first. I wanted to go to the US. But then the schools I did try to get, because I got into some schools there, but yeah, when I saw the money, I was like, yep, okay, this is beyond my thought process right now. And I was like, okay, let's see, where else could we look at it? Where is a good place in terms of rankings, but could actually give a very good education as well? So I looked around. Yes, there's Oxford. Yes, there's, LBS and everything. But in terms of value for money, I think what Bitsy said, I think Manchester was the right value for money. The last thing that I forgot to even mention was job prospects. I was looking at all of these and I was saying, okay, where can I pay the best money to get the best education that I could possibly get, to learn with people that I consider would be as smart or even smarter than I am, and then will also give me the opportunity to get a job in a good industry at the end. So it was that kind of criteria for me, and I think Manchester picked it up. And aside all of this, the other extra factor was I had a brother in Manchester, so it was kind of like might as well just go to Manchester. So it was so yeah, those were my criteria. I think Manchester picked that box for me very well.
Okay, fantastic. A nice added bonus to connect with family as well. Yeah, okay.
I think I would like to add just one more thing.
Absolutely.
I think for me, it was also important to be in a city, right? Like there are certain universities that have very nice campuses and everything, but it was important for me being in a city because sometimes like industry moves around you. So it's very easy to make connections and to like meet new people that might be interesting for your next career journey. Manchester is a city that it's growing a lot lately, and we actually got to meet like a lot of people working in very interesting companies and very interesting industries just for the sake that we were in Manchester.
Absolutely, yeah. I think that is sometimes an element people don't realize or forget about. We kind of, have best of both worlds. I'm not speak too fondly about Manchester. I've lived here for many, many years. I'm very fond on the city, but we're a full suite campus as well. The University of Manchester, and it's in the centre of the city as well. So, very, very attainable to get about. You mentioned there that you miss being able to walk around the city, Virginia. Now you're based in London. So yes. Okay. So moving on from there, I'd like to talk a little bit about life on the MBA. And Virginia, you mentioned earlier about the going back to school experience, and I think that's a key thing just to acknowledge is particularly on a full-time program whereby you are sort of taking a career break, you're going back to school, so to speak, and you're going into what can be a very intense learning environment as well. And I like to talk to candidates thinking about the MBA and remind them that this is a traditional full-time MBA. So it's not just about the class, and unique to this program as well, which we'll certainly come on to talk about. There's the projects, but then there's also careers activity, and then you might be involved in student clubs and might be doing MBA competitions as well. So might be helpful just for the candidates who are with us today, just to understand a bit about what a typical working week or a typical MBA week would be like. If one of you or a number of you are able to just share some insights on that. And I'm sort of at this point referring to let's talk about the first 9 months where you're kind of going through the core curriculum and the core projects as well. Anyone interested wanting to take that one on straight away?
Yeah, it's very hard because the schedules are like they vary a lot.
Yes, I was just thinking it feels like a lifetime ago as well, doesn't it?
Yeah, but I think we would have, and correct me if I'm wrong, but like classes, like face-to-face classes, like 3 times a week probably. And that would be like either morning or afternoon. And then the rest of the day and the other 2 days would be assigned for doing group works or like the projects that we were talking about. So the idea is that the projects are somehow tied to whatever you're studying in that like part of the MBA. So you can use the knowledge that you get in the classroom to answer some of the questions that you require in that teamwork. Being worth mentioning that when I'm talking about teamwork, I'm talking about live projects with live clients. So it's very interesting to make the ties, and it takes like actually some time because you have to be able like to relate theory to practice.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that is one key aspect to this MBA that will certainly, in fact, we'll probably come on to talk about it now. And I wanted to introduce the Manchester method, which is our sort of approach to delivering teaching at Manchester. And it's not just unique to our MBAs. We do find it in other programs across the masters as an undergrad as well, to some regard. But I think probably the very best example is this, our full-time program, and I think you've pretty much all of you have mentioned the projects in a sense of in the first question you answered in your thinking of your journey to the program, and I think it is such a key element, and that we have to talk about it in some detail. So I'd like to just introduce the Manchester method in the sense of the applied learning and those live client projects. How did you find that? And maybe it would be great if you could mention some of the clients you were working with, or the types of projects that you were on, and just for the audience who aren't aware of that, within the first 9 months you'll do 3 projects. Now 2 of those are live consulting projects, the non-profit project, and also the commercial business project as well. And nestled in between them is an mergers and acquisitions project, which is simulated. But maybe for the purpose of this discussion, I'm sure everyone's wanting to hear a bit about those live client projects, which you do have to juggle, I believe, alongside the core teaching, which supplements and supports that the theory you need to make the most out of those projects. So Ovie, can I go to you first?
Yeah, I was just gonna even touch on. So I wanted to touch back on the life on the MBA.
Yeah,
and try to mix it with this.
Great.
I would say that life on the MBA is kind of interesting. If you after working and doing having all the experience you've had, and then coming into a very new setting, I would say there's a whole lot to put your arms around when you come into the MBA. There's a whole lot of things happening. For prospective students, I'll say, find what it is you want to do before you come in, so that you can tailor your own experience. But we'll get to that. But for the Manchester method itself, I think for me, it was kind of very new for me. As I said, I was a procurement engineer, so my whole experience was around engineering, maybe some strategy, corporate strategy, and things like that. But coming here and then having the opportunity to not only learn the consulting experience, but also learning about the Manchester method and then applying it to actual live clients, I think that was huge. The first month, and I like the way it's structured, such that the first project is a not-for-profit project where you're kind of like just thrown into the deep end, just pick, I think it was called push or pull method. And it's just they push you out, and then you're meant to pull in as much of the knowledge as you get from the NFP classes to try and use that in your NFP client consultancy project, which I thought was quite interesting because, never done that before. But it's structured so that you can learn a little bit from the NFP, pick up your game in the next one, which is the commercial business project, CBP. And then when you get to the IB, which is International Business Project, you hone the skills such that you can actually deliver even better than what you thought before. So I think for me, I worked with the suicide bereavement not-for-profit for my first project, which suicide bereavement is a very interesting topic on its own. So that was kind of very new for me, but it was interesting to be able to even use what we learned at NFP to actually consult for a suicide bereavement firm. We're looking to increase profits. Kind of weird. But anyway, moved from there, we moved to the CBP project where I worked with GemServe. GemServe is an EV consulting company. So it was very interesting actually working as a consultant for a consulting company and trying to build out a kind of structure for feasibility of electric vehicles and charge vehicles and things like that. That was very interesting. And then finally going to IB and then working for the University Innovation Center with the iDrop. Funny enough, I don't think I can talk too much about the iDrop because it's actually coming out, supposed to come out sometime next year, and I'm fingers crossed, hoping that can come out soon, so I can say, hey, my name was part of that. But it was very interesting to have these experiences, and I think the Manchester method kind of gave me the opportunity to learn how to consult. Now, for consultants, I'm sure Bitsy will probably have much more to say, but for me, it was new, and I learned a lot, and it was an experience. So yeah, I think I can hand over to Bitsy or Beatriz to continue.
Yeah, thank you for that, Ovie. Beatriz, can you talk a bit about your experiences?
Yes, I totally agree with Ovie to try to connect what we're learning in class and what our professors are saying and see it actually in practice it just fast tracks your learning like hell. It's just a whole new experience. And it's like you said, you're thrown in there and you have to deliver to your client at the end of the day. And it was really interesting to see the vast of topics that you can get in this project. So my first project was with the Manchester Council, and it was about reducing green gas emissions by using anaerobic digestion, which is something that I never even heard about. And then is how you approach this, because it can be very overwhelming to suddenly being given a project of something that you don't even know what the words mean, never mind how you're going to come up with a solution. But you have not only the classes, but everything around you in Manchester can help you. So for example, one of the first things we did was check in our class who worked in green gas emissions, who work in farms, who has family that might have worked in farms, and sit down with them and learn from them, not just using the classes but using the people around us. And one thing about Manchester, the MBA life that neither of us talked about yet was the guest speakers. So every week we have people, senior leaders that come to the school and do talks about their experience. We had people from Merck, we had people from Google, just coming in, talk. Some are alums, some are not. And these are also contacts that you can reach out to help you with your project. My second project was about a go-to-market strategy for a brain implant for a startup. And we had a guest speaker that was from Merck, and that was one of the first people that we contacted to get some insights, to get some help with get to know her experience and to help with our solutions and our recommendations. So it is, I think, one of the best parts of the MBA. And even if you decide to not go into consulting, one of the main things that I've learned in this project that you cannot learn in classes, even though we have classes about it, is politics and managing people, and how you handle clients, how you liaise and talk about difficult topics and give difficult opinions and feedback and so on, is something that you can only learn by doing, and is something that I'm not in consulting anymore, but now is something that I still use on my day-to-day basis, and I definitely improved that a lot through this project.
Okay, fantastic. That's really, really interesting. And Virginia, do you have anything to add with regards to your experiences?
Well, yeah, I think my experience is a little bit different because, as Ovie was saying, I came from consulting. However, it was very challenging because you have to learn many things at the same time that I was not used to. So first, it was like different kind of consulting. I was specialized in certain kind of consulting, and as Beatriz and Ovie are mentioning, this had to do with like entry to new markets. It had to do with like finding targets in new industries. So this was challenging. The second one is having to get to know each other so fast, because these projects happen in a span time of like 3 months. So you have to coordinate like answering the question plus like understanding your team, and this like implies personalities, this imply cultures as well, because we're all from different countries in a very short time span, understanding your client. So yes, it is very challenging. Just to give you like an overview of what I had to do, my first project was with ex-military. That was very interesting. Yeah, so my non-for-profit, as Ovie was like explaining, that like you have different stages, was with ex-military. That one was very nice to have as a first approach, I think, not only because of the question that we had to answer, that at the time it was related to how to raise more money, and everything that had to do with marketing was very useful in that like stage that we were learning marketing at the same time that I had to be doing this project. It was very interesting because I had to understand a lot of society that I'm not aware of at all, because military is not the same in my country, right? And like people attachment to military is not the same. So you have to be very open-minded on how you understand these things, how you engage people, how you make them give money to this kind of causes. And for us, like for many of us, we were like, we would never give money to the military in our countries because of ABC or something like that. So it's very challenging in that sense. The second one was with a private equity, and that was for understanding which companies they should target. So everything that had to do with mergers and acquisitions was like key for understanding the mindset of what they were like looking at. And it was very well planned for us to have a M&A at the same time that we were having this project. And the third one was with Sony. My international project was with Sony. I cannot disclose a lot of what I was doing. Yeah.
That's okay.
Yeah. But I think something that I really valued from that stage is it was international. So we had to travel and we had to understand other markets because it's a product that they're aiming to launch and they want to do it in a global scale. And we took advantage of something that we have not been talking about, and it's the international centers that the university has. So they were very interested in understanding the Brazilian market, and we had to reach out to people in our Brazilian campus so they could be doing the connections for us, so we could be talking to the people we were interested in knowing and like understanding about.
Okay. Fantastic. So yeah, I mean, there's some really interesting points coming through there, you know, about the sort of collaborative learning, which this MBA is about, how quickly you had to sort of adapt to maybe a new way of working, new way of learning as well. And just to make it clear for candidates who may not know, you start your first consultancy project pretty much at the start of the MBA, is that right? So I think you go away on a team building weekend up in the Lake District, is that right? Yeah, and you meet your groups for your first project, you get to know them, and then you come back to Manchester and you are off, so to speak.
Not anymore though, we don't, so they change it in our year. So
okay.
That's good to say.
The weekend away used to be with the NFP group.
Okay, right. I see.
Now it's just at random and the bigger groups because what did I say at the time? Because the NFP is very the first 3 months and then there's so much going on that you move on. And they wanted to make sure that people interact with more people.
I see. Right. Okay, makes sense. Yeah.
Which I thought was really great because you just end up knowing a lot more of your colleagues because you're in a group with 10 people during that weekend, and then you start the NFP and there's 5 other people, and it allows you to meet and collaborate with a lot more people as opposed to being always with those five people.
Yeah, I think that's important, isn't it? In the sense that because I'd like to just come on to talk a bit about the sort of the profile of the MBA class as well. So obviously we're covering a number of different countries just in this panel today. But I believe, you know, typically you would be getting almost sometimes up to 30 different nationalities within the MBA of, I think, was your class size about 100? Was that right? So it'd be great if you could just talk a bit about maybe the sort of positives and of working sort of with different cultures, and you mentioned a bit about how that, you know, is evident within the stressful projects that you'd have to do, the client projects as well. I don't know, just a bit about the diversity and the nationalities of the MBA. So Ovie, if you want to talk a bit about that.
So yes, I think you were right. We had 30 different nationalities in our cohort, and it was very interesting for me because I just use it as a learning opportunity. I think one thing that I would say is the way the MBA has structured it, Manchester MBA has structured it such that you have many projects that you're working with different people. So for example, the NFP, when you come in and you're doing that immediately, you still have accounting, you still have, like, you have so many other projects that you're working with different people. And I think for me, it was very interesting to learn how different people had different nuances and just what they brought to the table in terms of a project. And for me right now, that's helping me a lot because I'm now in a multinational organization where I have to deal with people. For example, I'm here in the UK, and majority of the project I'm handling right now is in the US, but also talk to people in India, talk to people in Manila. So it's interesting to have the experience when you're talking to different people and you could relate with them from your own MBA experience. I think is amazing. So another thing is the age, like I think Fitzia said and Beatriz said, I'm trying to think of the scale, but you eventually have people your age, depending on, how, I want to say between your 20, I want to say
I think the youngest one we had was 25,
24?
24 maybe
yeah.
when they started, and the oldest one 39, 40, but the average age was 30.
Yeah.
So which I thought was
35 nationalities.
35,
35
wow.
in your class. Okay, so it's even more diverse here.
Exactly. So that is interesting, and I thought that was like you get to experience different people from different versions of their career, different times in their careers, and I think that's really good because you learn a lot. For me, I'm trying to be a sponge in the MBA, trying to learn and see how people behave, how people think about things. It helps you understand more about where people come from. So I think that was really good for me.
Fantastic. Anything else to add from either of you guys around that?
Well, I think that the exercise of having people from all over the world develop certain skills. So you become more tolerant, right? And more open towards someone else's opinion. And this would be notwithstanding if, for example, I go back to Mexico and I work with all Mexicans, you learn to do that, because you have to understand that people have different ways of communicate with each other. There are certain cultures, for example, that are more shy than other ones to give their opinion, and how you get that information from them, because many of them may have something valuable to say, but they're not willing to say so, or all the way around, right? People that is very straightforward. And for example, I'm Latin American and I'm used to say please and thank you for everything. And you should not be taking things personally, when this kind of things happen. So for me, it was developing this skill of trying to understand my surrounding and be more tolerant towards people. And of course, having also things in common that you didn't think you had in common, right? So you have these prejudices of certain cultures being certain ways, and you start realizing that you have more things in common than what you thought. And then you become very close to people that you would otherwise wouldn't think that you could be that close to the extent, for example, that Beatriz and myself are going to weddings, right? Of people from our cohort right now, because we became very close to, we're going to India. Yeah, this December, and then next year Colombia for other friends, and so on. You start to become part of the family, because also the fact that you're in another country, new country, you do not know anyone, but the people in your cohort, of course, you become very close to each other, to the extent that if something happens, it's gonna be your people responding for you. We had people going to hospitals, we had people breaking up, we had many issues, and it's the people in your cohort who's gonna be for you there.
Fantastic, yeah. One community, one family, one MBA family, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, while we're on the topic of sort of diversity and international students that make up the MBA, the business school is, of course, very, very global and international as well. And for candidates who are unaware, that we also deliver MBA programs outside of Manchester. We have our overseas centres in the Middle East, out of Dubai, and we also have our centres across Asia in Shanghai, Singapore, and Hong Kong. And the interesting fact, and why this sort of relates to you guys, is that you do have the option on the full-time program to engage, if you want to, with the international side of the business school. Did any of you take up that opportunity? Did you take elective courses, or we do also offer study tours as well? Was that an option for you guys too?
Yes, I went to the study tour in Dubai, and I did an elective there as well. So that's the only the only one that I visit.
Okay.
But I thought that was super valuable. Was another thing that I really liked about the program was the fact that you can go abroad, and in the study tour you go to different companies and you meet, you do activities. We did some activities, some really short, if we had to solve X, Y, Z problem, what would you do? So very much on the spot, but he also gives you the opportunity of show what you learn and show your skills to companies on the other side of the world. I'm still in touch with people from companies that I met in Dubai. And I thought that was very, very interesting too, because I don't think I would have gone there if it wasn't for this. So it was a really good opportunity.
Fantastic. Any other examples like that?
Well, I didn't go abroad, but I think it's worth saying that even if you take electives here, there's going to be people from the other centers coming. So that's how you get like to know people as well. So all the electives that I took, like I met people from the Dubai Center, from the Brazil Center. I did like some teamwork with them, also from like, I think it was the Shanghai Center. So you're not going to avoid that, like even if you do not travel. And like the other thing that I was telling about before is the fact that they were even helping us. Even though like I did not go to the Brazil Center for my IB, for my international business project, I was in touch with people from the Brazilian Center, and they were like super kind, and they helped me like reach out to people and set up interviews. I had to go to Brazil as part of my project, and partly they were like very helpful to make like the trip being successful.
Okay, fantastic. I mean, that's an important point as well. And again, I just to make things clear, when unique to this MBA is when you do your elective courses, unlike the first 9 months where your core courses, it's traditionally face-to-face teaching, you're going into the classroom sort of morning and afternoon. But actually, when you select your elective courses on our full-time MBA, you're sharing the electives with our part-time executive MBA candidates, which must be really interesting, because suddenly you're in a classroom of, well, I suppose generally more senior candidates. Could be executives with 20, 25 years work experience in some regards. So again, that could plug in quite nicely to your career conversations when you're getting to that sort of stage of MBA. And that actually brings me on to quite a nice segue into a topic which, of course, must be incredibly important for every candidate thinking about doing an MBA, going through the journey, and that is, of course, the career side of things, and how much that an MBA can contribute to that. So, of course, everyone here today is thankfully in a good job post MBA, and as well. One element that I think is important is of course the internship, which comes in the summer period on this program. It'd be great if you're able to just talk briefly about your internship experience, where you did your internship, how you think that contributed to your overall MBA experience. Did it sort of lead into a job or some job offers or opportunities like that? So yes, it'd be great if we could just look into that in a bit more detail. If I go to Beatriz, are you happy to talk about that?
Yes, I was just thinking that I think all of us are working where we did with our internship, aren't we? Because, yeah. For the audience,
that's worked out well.
Happen, but it's not the case for everyone.
No, okay.
But yes, I think we were fortunate enough. So I did my internship in Johnson & Johnson. So I was lucky enough to secure the EMEA position for the Procurement Leadership Program last year. So I started designing what I'm now still working on. That was the Supply Relationship Management Program for Janssen UK. And then now I'm still continue on this project because Johnson & Johnson did decide to implement it, which was great. And now we have a whole team working on this. So it's why I'm still continue on that journey with J&J.
Fantastic. Ovie, over to you.
So it's very interesting that we all actually did the internship in the same place. I didn't even realize that. But
I should say different companies, not all the same company.
So I did my internship at American Express. I did it in the GSG, so Global Services Group, within the travel and lifestyle team. Now, if you had asked me before I came to the MBA, will this be an opportunity, that I would probably have said no, but I'll say the MBA definitely gave me the opportunity to work at American Express. I didn't. I wasn't necessarily interested in travel and lifestyle as a place, but I'm here and I totally enjoy it right now. It gives me like a new horizon to different things, because as I said, petroleum engineer with the MBA experience, then now in American Express, financial services and travel and lifestyle. So it was interesting, and that opportunity then gave me the opportunity to secure a full-time role. So I started doing an internship with the travel and lifestyle, working in the core operations team, and now I've come back and I'm working in the strategy team of travel and lifestyle. So it's been an interesting journey, and I think I'm still learning as it's going. So hoping to hear more about good news for all of us, right?
Thank you. Virginia?
Yeah, sure. So same story. I did my internship where I currently work. I think it's worth saying in my case that in my office, it's almost a must to have an MBA. It's very few people, the ones that do not have an MBA, and I work with people from many different universities. So there's a lot of like Oxonians, people from London School of Economics, many other universities as well. I think they started working with the university because I had my internship through the career services like 4 years ago, or like 5 years ago, that they hired the first Manchester University alumni. They loved him. And then they started engaging a lot with the university, to the extent that I think we're like a team of 40 people, and now 7 or 8 were Mancunians, or honorary Mancunians. Yeah. So they love people from University of Manchester. I think they love that we're like very hands-on, and like that we really dive in on certainty. So whatever like they will throw us, like we will take, and we will like convert into a solution. So yeah, I think they're very happy like with the school. I think to the extent that they're going back this year to even like do some case competition, and like they go recruit. Probably they have like 2 or 3 interns a year. So yeah, that's pretty much my experience.
Fantastic. And I suppose it'd be interesting to see how much our career service, the postgraduate career service, sort of helped you, or sort of and whether that was critical for their engagement, for you to sort of find out about these companies, you know, the internship opportunity, and how they supported you from that point. What I suppose an interesting question to ask all of you is, did you foresee or think you'd be working for these companies sort of before or during the start of the MBA? Is that, or is it something that came from a sort of an educational sort of process within the program?
I think in my case, the company is 100% English, and it's a boutique firm. So okay. It's the kind of companies that you do not know until you arrive to the UK and you start like researching on consulting firms. And it was partly because of research and partly because of career services.
Okay, fantastic. And of course, J&J and American Express are slightly bigger sort of global organizations, but had you guys kind of expected to be working for them, or?
I targeted J&J.
Okay.
I did wanted to move career, to move industry. I wanted to work either healthcare, pharma, life sciences, that sort of thing. So I targeted J&J. I wasn't expecting to get it, to be honest, because there's such, you know, there's so competitive to get into these development programs, and people from all over the world apply. There was overall for the development program, I think there was 5 positions, and there was 4 people from the States, which are the best schools, and then there was me.
Wow.
So they do hire a few people from Manchester, but very, very few. But yeah, I think they were quite happy with Manchester overall, because out of the 5 people, I was the only one that stayed. So hopefully for future students, that will help them get into JD.
Yeah. Fantastic. That's really interesting. Ovie, do you have anything to add around that?
I was going to say, just like Vitsi, the first person who did the internship with American Express definitely did us very well, because they keep coming back now. and so even next year, I know that they're coming. The year that just passed, so sorry, this year, June to August, we had an AMBS intern, MBA intern. So, and I'm sure we're gonna have another one next year. So, because we'll be doing well, and I think they like us. They definitely see the value in bringing us into the team. So I know that the CSBS internship, the marketing internship, the strategy internship. So American Express does have like a lot of different positions for MBA interns, and they tend to come to Manchester for the CSBS internship, marketing as well. But it's open, and you can actually go into any one of these internships and you'll be fine. As regards career services, yes. Or sorry, let me answer the first question, which was, did I think myself to be in American Express? No, because my thought process when I came in was to target tech firms. So I was looking at Google, Meta, everything else that could come up tech-wise, Amazon. And then I saw American Express. To be fair, they did come, well, they had a presentation in the school just before the internship season started or kicked off. They had a presentation, and I was drawn because the culture seemed very amazing. I was like, okay. So that wouldn't have come if I didn't come to Manchester and they didn't come to have a presentation. So they had a presentation. The culture seemed great. I sort of saw myself saying, okay, I could do this. This is different, but I could do it. And then finished up, or had the opportunity to then go about doing or submitting my internship letter. And by the way, yes, Career Services was very helpful in that. The internship, the cover letter, and everything that is necessary to actually apply, Career Services definitely played a part. And then moving on to the interview stages, Career Services also helped because they had like majority of the questions that were already coming, that were going to be asked during the internship interview. So that was very interesting. So I would say, all in all, did I see myself coming to American Express? No. Did I, after hearing about them? Yeah, I was like, okay, I could do this. This is nice. And then Career Services definitely helped out. So I think all in all, it was a kind of match made somewhere. So yeah.
Okay, fantastic. So I suppose there is a bit of a message there to candidates joining us today that you know, the MBA is as much about sort of inspirational, educational piece about potential job, you know, different companies, the UK market, as much as it is about supporting your outward goal or before joining the program. So yeah, hopefully that's been of some help. So I think we are getting towards the end of the session. Maybe we can just got time for one last top level question. Just if I could put to everyone, if you had a particular sort of piece of advice or a tip for any candidates at this point looking at selecting MBAs, doing their research, or maybe the actual application admission process, what would you say? So whoever wants to go first with that, Virginia, do you have a tip or anything you'd like to
I'm
say?
thinking I'm gonna turn it to Ovie while I think.
I think the one thing that comes to my mind immediately is, and I think I touched on this before, is I think the MBA is a very interesting experience, and it does give you a lot of benefits at the end of the day. What I would say is, before coming or before choosing anywhere or starting your research, I think you really need to understand what it is that you want out of the MBA, because yes, the school tries their best to do what they can do, but the truth is you have to be very clear on what it is you're trying to go for. Now, it could change in the course of the MBA, like mine did. I was all tech focused, and then now I'm here. But you should be clear on what it is your outcome goal should be, so that, one, you can apply to the school that will give you that opportunity to do that. Two, when you get in, as I said, there's so many things thrown at you. You need to know what you are holding on to and what you are maybe going to shift aside and focus on what you want to do. So, and this comes at electives, it comes at some of the extracurricular activities as well. So I think my advice would be, make sure you understand your reason why before you know, I think start from there. Be very clear on your goal, and then you move on. So that would be my advice.
Great tip. Thank you.
I think I'm gonna add to that. I agree on like being clear on the goal, but also you need a lot of flexibility. When you do an MBA, there's a lot of uncertainty on the way because you're moving countries. You do not know if you're going back home, if you're gonna end up in a third country, if you're gonna stay in the UK. You have like to really like live in uncertainty. And sometimes it's not wherever you want to go, you're not gonna get there in the way in which you were thinking of, right? So you maybe have like very clear in your mind that you want to get like there and you want to do this after the MBA, and you probably like make up your mind on how you're going to be reaching out there, but you have to be very flexible. That probably is going to be in a different way, and somehow you're getting there. And I'm telling that maybe you think that by applying, you're going to get it the first time. And then you realize that you have to start like meeting people to get where you want to go. That probably is not going to be your first role after graduating from the MBA, but you need to jump into a certain other strategic role to get where you want to go. Maybe also that whatever you thought would make you happy does not make you happy. And that this happens a lot because of diversity, I think, because you're exposed. Many of us come from like companies that are like very well said, and you have the same people surrounding you the whole time. And it's very easy to fall like into the idea that that's the way to go. And then you arrive to an MBA, you have like more than 100 people coming from different industries, coming from different companies. And then you start listening to their stories and start thinking like, is this something that I would enjoy doing actually? And at first I was not even thinking about this. So I think for me, it's like you have to be very open-minded.
Fantastic, great tip. I suppose that was a point I tried to make earlier, but you made it far better than I did. Great effort. Okay, and finally, Beatriz.
Yeah, so I think in terms of applying, one thing that people should be really mindful of is how do they best learn. So if you're the kind of person that likes to sit down and listen, or if you're the kind of person that learns by doing or learns by seeing, I'm the kind of person that learns by doing and by talking with other people. So the MBA in Manchester really suited me, and I learned a lot more than I would if I had gone to a university where I just sit down and have classes all day. But that's my personal way of learning. So I think if you're going through the process of deciding which school you want to pick, I think it's very important to first find how you best learn, how you best evolve, and then find how those schools teach, what is their main way of teaching the students.
I think that's such a valid point, because I think a lot of business schools on paper look very similar, and it's not until you actually, I mean, I suppose this is why we have these sessions, so candidates can really get to know a bit more about their method, and we've touched on it. And great point there, Beatrice, is we do have a distinct delivery, and the applied learning is certainly our key sort of differentiator, if you like, to some regard. Okay, fantastic. I'm just conscious of the time. We're going for an hour now, which is great. But I know you guys are so busy at the moment, so I will let you disappear and go back to your work or whatever you need to be doing. And myself and Charlotte will take over and answer some questions. So if candidates still in the room, if you do have some questions, do hang on, and myself and Charlotte will address those. But before that point, just a huge thank you to Virginia, Ovie, and Beatrice. I think that's been an excellent session, and I'm sure you've been hugely valuable for candidates who are sort of in this decision-making process and navigating that MBA admission process. So thanks so much. And if you'd like to say goodbye, and we'll take over.
Thank you for having us. We really had a lot of fun. We missed each other because we haven't seen each other for a while.
You can get together at other points, you know.
Yes, we definitely do too. Thank you, everyone. I hope this was helpful, and we're here if you want to also reach out if you have any questions.
Yeah, same. I think if you want to reach out, if you have any questions, please. I think LinkedIn is the best place to start. Please reach out to any one of us. But thank you, and I really hope it's helpful for you guys as well. So, because it'll be nice for you to also make that progression in your career. So, yeah.
Fantastic. Thanks so much for that. Okay, then. Bye, guys. Thanks again. And we'll be in touch soon, I'm sure.